So I finally get on the JAL flight. There are not many people on the plane. I get a row of three. I'm the only one. Everyone is pretty much spaced out because of social distancing, and so it's a long flight. And but the food is good. The JAL flight attendants are very kind, and of course the service is always great on JAL. We finally get into Narita, and my heart is starting to pump because I know that I gotta make the connecting flight from Narita to Itami. I gotta clear the PCR testing, clear immigration, pick up my bags, clear customs, and make my flight, which is about 2 hours and 20 minutes, I think, from the time we land to the time that it departs. And if you take away another 20 minutes or half an hour that you have to board, basically 2 hours. And the stories I heard, it takes between 2 to 4 or 5 hours. I kind of resigned to the fact that I may have to stay in Tokyo, but I was going to do my best to try and make it to catch that flight because I didn't want to stay overnight in Narita. It's not a 24-hour airport, so technically you're not supposed to be able to stay. But I heard through some of the people who have commented on my post that Narita blocks out a certain area with a toilet that people can stay overnight if they have to. But it's not a 24-hour terminal, so there are no restaurants. So basically it's a toilet and maybe a place that you can sit or maybe rest. We come off the plane and I'm moving quickly. I'm walking at full speed. I don't know what to expect because I've never done this before. As we sprint out, walking really fastly, we hit the first station. And the first station, there are three guys who are taking your passport and then they're copying each one and then they're giving you some kind of document. That seems strange to me. I thought that you would at least have two, maybe three that are taking in customers. So there's a long line because there's a backup. Each passport has to be screened individually. Another thing I also noticed was these three guys were not Japanese. They were foreigners. And I heard some of their Japanese, and one guy spoke quite well, but the other two were just like my Japanese. So I was kind of surprised that you would use foreigners for this main station, the first station, which you want to speed it up as much as possible because you only have one passport copying machine. So those are two things I thought were strange. I don't know if this is JAL or this is immigration or how they determine how many machines that you will have and who will be working there. But then the next place you go is for the saliva testing, for the PCR test. They give you a little plastic unit and you go into a little booth and there's some instructions in English on the wall about what to do, and you have to give so much saliva to fill it to a certain mark and you have to cap it and give it to them. Then after that, there is a whole line of different checkpoints. I couldn't believe it. There must have been between 8 to 10 different checkpoints along the way that are either taking a document, giving you a document, or just looking at a document or stamping a document. And again, 90% of the people working at these stations were foreigners. And I to this day, I still don't understand why. I could see there is one checkpoint where they're asking you questions in your native language, that you had foreigners there to speak their mother tongue to people who are from, that country. But all the other stations, you didn't need foreigners working. I'm a foreigner and it's great that they're employing foreigners, but I did not think it was the most efficient way to run checkpoints. And the reason is because there's no tourists coming in at this point. So the only people coming back are people who have maybe a working visa or maybe they're coming to study. But most of the people coming back from, let's say, Hawaii, who were on the JAL flight, they were mainly Japanese. So you have Japanese nationals returning and they are then interacting with the foreign working staff of these checkpoints. And I couldn't understand the logic. Were they just cheaper to pay, or is there a certain reason that they were selected? So finally, after going through all the checkpoints, giving documents, signing things. So anyway, it takes almost an hour to go through all of these stations. And then finally we get to a place where they give you a seat number. I think I was like D46 or something. You are to sit at your seat number. They start calling numbers over the PA system. They first do it in Japanese and then they do it in English. But it's really hard to hear. The PA system at the Narita Airport for that section was, I don't know if it was old, but it was just difficult to hear. You couldn't hear it clearly, even if you understood Japanese or English. So I'm wondering, what about the foreigners that come through who don't speak Japanese and maybe don't speak English as their native tongue, how would they hear or understand what they were saying? So I thought that was another red flag that was not thought out well. They started calling numbers, and it would be the last 4 numbers. They give you a number that's 12 digits long, but actually they were only calling the last 4 numbers. But I didn't know if everybody understood that. I'm sure after a while people figured it out. And this wait was about a little over 20 minutes, 25 minutes maybe. And when your number was called, then you would go to the front and show them your paper, they would check to make sure that what your results were. And if you were negative, give you the prize pink quarantine card, which then you showed to people on the way out as you were released from the PCR testing area. And once you got through there, you were led to immigration. And I got through immigration really quickly, got to the baggage claim. My bags were already there, grabbed my bag and got out. All in all, it was a little over an hour and a half. And, you know, I had also had my SOS done at the Honolulu International Airport. Fortunately, I got it done before I left. So that's also saved me a lot of time getting it done on my SOS. And then the color changes from red to green. Green meaning that you have been successful in handing in all the required documents, really speeds up the process. And I guess that's what they call fast track. I come out of customs, so happy to be free, so happy for it to be done. Look for the domestic terminal. Look on the left side. For whatever reason, JAL had a great position. If you come out of the B section, it was right on the left. Took my bags there, checked it in, told the lady how crazy the PCR system was, and she said, yeah. And I told her how long it took me, a little over an hour and a half, and I said, that was long. She goes, no, that was really fast. There are a lot of people who take between 3 to 5 hours, and she said even last week she had one person who was in there for 8 hours. So when I heard that, I thought, wow, thank God for small favors that I got through so quickly and I could check in and catch my flight. And what was also interesting was on my paper, it said, you know, that I was not a designated country and that I had my 3 vaccinations. I didn't have to quarantine for those 3 days like when initially I had thought. Everybody had told me you got to quarantine for 3 days. So that must have changed while I was in Hawaii. So that was another good thing. So again, if you're a non-designated country and you have the vaccination, you did the MyOS and uploaded everything, you don't have to quarantine. So I didn't have to quarantine, so that was great.